Welcome to the Sixcast, a podcast where we discuss real-world strategies, tips, and stories that provide helpful insights for your digital transformation experience.
Hello, my name is Varuna Kalwansha. I'm the CEO of Six Senses and the host of Sixcast, where we talk about technology, digital transformation, socioeconomics, and personal growth. Today, we have the wonderful Maria Shibaeva-Escarraga joining us. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Maria Shibaeva-Escarraga is an award-winning executive-level business leader, effective communication expert. She's a master storyteller and a faculty at the University of Toronto, one of the top 20 global universities. She's an ex-P&G brand director. Maria has 13 plus, maybe 14 now, years of passion and expertise for developing winning communication. She's the winner of two Cannes International Film Festival Alliance in 2019. I'd love to talk more about that later. Maria has 15 plus years of teaching and public speaking experience across multiple universities, University of Toronto being one of the main ones. And most recently, I saw a LinkedIn post where you spoke at Harvard Business School. Fantastic. And you won the award as the Professor of the Year in 2023 and 2024. Fantastic. And Maria has been working as an independent strategic consultant for 13 plus years. She's a philanthropist with Rotary International, where actually we also met. She has led global volunteer teams. She has the ability to speak 5 languages: English, Russian, which is the native, French and Spanish, and a little bit of Italian. And most of all, Maria is a good friend of mine, and we've known each other for about 15 years. We first met through Rotary Club of Toronto, where we did lots of volunteer work and around the city of Toronto. Here are some photos just to give you some insight on how we have met originally and what we have done. Again, you have a tremendous resume, Maria. I'm truly honored to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To get things started, Maria, tell me a bit about yourself and how your life journey has been, and what do you want to achieve in life? I know it's a loaded question, but that is my first question.
That is a loaded question. Maybe let me start with the personal side and then we'll go to the professional. So personally, I was born in a country which no longer exists, the USSR. I've immigrated many times. Life found me in the UK, in Italy, in Canada, in Colombia, which has added to my personal multicultural experience. And from a professional standpoint, which kind of builds on my personal life, I have a massive case of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
I realized quite early I want to do not everything, but as much as possible in this one life I get to live. And that took me into a corporate career, as you mentioned, and on top of my job description, into some various passion projects, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. It took me into education, public speaking, this idea of coaching, giving back, philanthropy, and it took me to start my own business, work for myself. And while there are things that tie all that together, really, I'm all about freedom, career freedom, location freedom, cultural freedom. So all of that is linked.
Perfect. Now that we settled in, here's what we're going to be diving into today, Maria. We're going to talk about career strategy, making intentional choices, and building a roadmap that aligns with your goals, professional or personal goals. We also want to talk about transferable skills. You have moved around the world. You moved around jobs. Not in a negative way. You've changed your careers a couple of times, and we want to talk about how to pivot across industries, roles, and using past experience. We want to talk about communication and personal branding, which actually really important whether you're a professional, work somewhere else, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're a student, which you
Mhm.
probably are talking about it at your classes. How do you present yourself authentically and effectively while also relating yourself to the culture and environment that you exist? We want to talk about multicultural experience. You touched upon that a little bit. How to balance the rules of the game, while staying true to yourself, being authentic. And we want to talk about knowledge acquisition. Is the age of AI, knowledge acquisition, adoption of technology, adoption of knowledge has got faster like never before. We wanted to talk about how to stay competitive by continuously building the skills that
Mhm.
the market and the evolution, economic, social, technological evolution requires. If you have time, we want to talk about AI and career growth as well, how to leverage AI to better your career. So there's a lot of ground to cover. So let's jump right in.
Cool.
Let's talk about career strategy. You worked across multiple roles as a consultant, as a professor, as a brand director for P&G, as an entrepreneur. How do you approach career strategy to maintain a flexibility while progressing in different domains?
Cool. Big question as well. It's funny because often we're very strategic at work, but in life we aren't very strategic. We just go with the flow. And I think there is a balance to be struck between having a strategic plan for your life, which of course means your career, among other things, while still being flexible and open to opportunities that may present themselves, even if they're not directly linked to your plan. So, this balance should start early. You mentioned different points in your career. And yes, either as a student, as a young professional, in the middle of your career looking for a change, even at the end of your career looking for the next fun or wanted project. I think there needs to be that balance. When it comes to the plan, simple. I mean, simpler said than done, but thinking about the short term, what do you want to do next? That's an important question. What's next? The medium term, what do you want from your bigger picture life? Something I really like, or a book that was really impactful to me, was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And they
Yeah.
talked about this concept of 7 rocks and 7 big priorities. I'm a simple person, so I brought that down to 5 for myself. If I can count them on one hand, I usually won't forget. But what are your bigger priorities? And work is there, but many other things are there as well. And then in the long term, being open. I don't believe in 15 or 20-year plans. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows what will happen,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think as long as you have a plan that you've intentionally thought about, and we'll talk about personal branding and how you come to that plan, but you need to have one and then still be open to seeing opportunities and saying yes.
Interesting. This is something that I didn't want to touch on, but however, you said who wants to build a 20 year plans? We don't know what's in it in the future. And I've seen you personally love to travel. I love to travel. And I've seen individuals postpone their travel or fun, having good
Mhm.
times with their family type of plans until they retire. So you think you don't want to postpone things, enjoying your life, be living the best version of the life that you can live, whatever the condition, situation that you are in. You're thinking, make it make it not too long term. You want to have a vision
Mhm.
to a certain vision because we don't know how much longer we're going to live and things change, world changes. Is that what you say?
I do. I really believe that, and it comes from personal context. Not to we won't get too deep, but just due to some life situations, health situations, I believe in hoping and having that vision long term. But I don't believe in life bucket lists. I believe in annual bucket lists. So what
Interesting.
I do, and it's less about New Year's resolutions, but really, what do I want to do this year?
Right.
Do I want to learn something new? Do I want to go on a trip? Do I want to do something new at work or in my personal life, make a change? And let's try to get a couple things done this year, now, so to speak. And that way you know that you're working on that plan without putting too much off. That doesn't mean leave everything behind and do whatever you want every year, but a couple intentional pieces,
Hmm.
get them done regularly. Don't put something important off.
Making little steps,
Yes,
drop in the bucket.
yes,
Drop, it fills it fills the pot eventually. You want to do it little by little. Being consistent is an important thing, as well
yes.
as many life coaches, successful people would say. It's not about it's not about doing a major change at once, not turning a 180 degree,
Mhm,
making a 180-degree turn. It's about making incremental changes as long as you are progress forward.
mhm. Yes.
What advice would you like to give to someone navigating an inflection point in their career? A lot of individuals, especially these days, are worried about their jobs, are worried about the economic situations, social situations, political situations, whether they are transitioning from industries or considering entrepreneurship or taking a career break. What would you recommend? What advice would you like to share with them?
I mean, that's a tricky. I don't know if I'm an expert, but here's what I personally would think about. Number one, it's always easier to make a change while you're feeling secure. Like people say it's easier to look for work when you have a job. And it's easier also to make a risky change when you're financially okay. So get your personal finances in order. So whatever interpretation of this advice you want to take, if you have a healthier base, if your personal finances are in order, you've talked about it with your family, your support system, and you're currently employed, that is probably the best point in time to think about a change when you don't have that crazy pressure.
Hmm.
Although sometimes we can't plan it that way, of course. But
Hmm.
again, if you can, that's the first thing I would consider. The second thing I would consider is knowing your worth, market worth, and marketability. This was actually advice that was given to me a while ago when I was new in the industry. Someone told me, I actually go on an interview every year. And I said, well, do you not like your job? I love my job. She's like, no, no, it's not about that. It's about knowing what's possible. It's about me feeling secure, knowing my market worth, my marketability, or maybe what I need to work on, like any gaps.
Hmm.
And I thought that was so cool and maybe not exactly my style to go at an interview every year, but this concept of through your network, through your connections, are you marketable? Maybe do you have any gaps? Just being in touch with the market. So you're not surprised. Because I think the worst thing that happens is when people get surprised in a
Yeah.
negative way. And that's when we feel lost and the pressure and we don't know what to do. So I think between having a healthy base and being in touch and knowing your marketability, that will be a good starting point.
Knowing marketability is something really relates with me as well, especially as an entrepreneur running a business. You don't get to know because you are very busy with your everyday.
Hmm.
You tend to forget how valuable you are at times. In most cases, I've found exceptionally smart people, exceptionally hardworking individuals do not know their worth.
Hmm.
That is a challenge. I have come across that as well. I had a friend of mine who also came on to the our podcast one day said, know your worth. Remember, you are the boss. Sometimes you forget that you're the boss.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget the amount of knowledge, experience
Mhm.
that we've gathered, the amount of the worth of the network
Mhm.
that we have captured, and all of that considered, I I truly believe, and I agree with what you say, that you need to know from
Mhm.
time to time. Go out and check it out.
Yes.
Talk to your friends, even if you don't want to go into a job interview. It's about talking to your boss and, okay, this is what I can believe, this is what I believe, this is what I can do, this is what I strong, these are the areas that I think I should improve, and talk to us.
Mhm.
Talk to us means, because I manage a
Yes.
team, we wanted to know.
Mhm.
But sometimes I've noticed that your opportunities may be just around you, but you are shooting so far out. Your opportunities could be just around you.
Yes, absolutely. And just being open, it's almost being open-minded, not just in an active sense, but also in a passive sense, being open-minded to opportunities, to conversations. It's networking 101. Networking shouldn't happen, or relationship building, when you're in dire need of something specific. It should happen naturally.
Yeah,
And then maybe in 5, 10 years, something lovely may come out of it.
yeah,
And I think if you just get out of your context, like you said, because you're always in it, but if you
yeah.
get out of your context, out of the office, out of the company, you talk to external people and just get an external perspective on yourself, it's really eye-opening.
Are you referring to being nice to people that you meet?
Always. Yes.
I always see you as a very happy person, always, smiling. I truly believe in that as well. You don't know who's sitting next to you.
Yes. Absolutely.
You don't know who you're talking to, in a subway or train, in a parking lot. So don't I would don't yell at them. And if someone is distracting or someone is blocking the way, just be kind.
Yeah, you never know who you're going to cross paths with.
You
Yes.
never know who you're gonna cross paths with. So I want to talk a little bit more about the transferable
Hmm.
strategy and learning. You talk about this. You teach. You talk about this a lot. In your experience, what are the most crucial transferable skills that professionals should develop? Whether it's students, we always talk about professionals. I think students, university, high school students, anybody, even in
Hmm.
in the, in the elementary schools, children need to be taught as well. What are the most crucial ones, in your opinion, one should develop to thrive across roles, industries, at schools,
Hmm.
um, or anywhere?
I think that a few that transgress all industries and contexts, I would say the concept of critical thinking, like thinking critically, whether it's thinking analytically, diagnostically, creatively, being able to think, to find the root causes of various problems or questions or opportunities and help solve those problems or take advantage of opportunities and make decisions. So
Hmm.
this area of critical thinking, everybody needs it, especially in today's fast-paced environment.
Hmm.
Clear communication.
Hmm.
Can you articulate your point of view and your key supporting points clearly and effectively so that you achieve the desired effect? Again, every industry, you need this, even more so in a multicultural environment where things can quite literally get lost in translation. Self-management, really
Yep.
critical. Organization, time management, and a big portion of that is adaptability and flexibility. We now know as a student, you 100% know that whatever you do is not going to be forever. Whatever your first career is, whatever your first job is, you have to be flexible and adaptable. So stop practicing and being open to that now. Again, no surprises. And this obviously leadership, and it's a big word. I don't mean everyone has to lead a massive team or be the boss, but being able to have an idea, tell other people about it, get them involved so that you progress. I think that that concept overarching leadership is important. And regardless of the transferable skills, the other thing I always tell students, figure out 2 to 3 things that you're really good at. Because if you have the transferable skills as the foundation, but then you also have a few things that you are great at, I think together, that's really powerful. That's a good starting point. It may not be everything you need, but it's a good
Mhm.
starting point.
Now, you talked about leadership. You don't have to necessarily lead a team to take the leadership. It could be taking the leadership, taking the ownership about your own life.
Yes. Yes. Accountability. Yes.
Accountability. You
Mm-hmm.
see your life as an entity,
Mm-hmm.
and how can you take the leadership of your
Yes.
own life, family?
Mm-hmm.
That also goes a long way. Again, uh, you may have a lot of knowledge, expertise, intelligence, but you need to be a leader to be able to take them out and use them,
Mm-hmm.
leverage them for something better,
Yes. My old MBA strategy professor
right?
said that strategy outside of your corporate life, strategy is the difference between truly progressing in your own life, in your own human life,
Yeah.
versus just going with the flow wherever life takes you. And I thought that was so cool. Like I actually just told my students about it this week. Like strategy and leadership of your own life, very important.
Being
Mm.
very intentional, is that what
Yes.
you mean?
Yes, being very intentional, doing things for a reason and really thinking about it.
Right. If you wanted to move,
Mhm.
let's say Toronto, from a rural town in Northern Ontario, or if you want to do the other way around,
Hmm.
do it intentionally,
Yes.
not just because do it for the sake of
Yes.
doing it or because everyone else is doing it.
Yes. Agreed.
Right, right. How do you recommend people identify and package previous experience for a new role or an industry? I wanted to have a little bit of I have a caveat into that a question because I hire people cross industries.
Hmm.
I truly believe in education, and if I feel individuals have a certain level of education or complementary experience, I strongly believe that they can be trained and to do something completely different. I hire educators to do e-commerce work sometimes,
Hmm.
and they end up doing phenomenal work. As opposed to, of course, we do hire technical people with technical background for technical work. At the same time, for certain roles, I've tried that out. It works most of the time, not all the time, but it works most of the time. The only difference of someone succeeding and not succeeding, there's a thin line. That
Hmm.
is your attitude.
I like that.
So if you could tell me,
Yeah.
a little bit more about that. What are your thoughts?
I would say 3 things. Now, number one, don't think of your professional career as linear. I often feel like to your point, someone says, I'm a technical person, and they only look for things that are technical steps, and they don't even look outside of that. So I think this idea of attitude and being open-minded is critical because you're more than just a technical person. Now, here's the difficult part. How do you know what else you can do? I Early in my career, someone told me about the 360 feedback tool. Like, how do you get feedback from people across the organization, from people that work for you, from your bosses, in a way that's, of course, anonymous or not, up to you, but in a way that you actually understand. Yes, you're great at the technical stuff, but also people love working with you. You're collaborative, you're a fast learner, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this concept of actually finding out what you're good at from an outside perspective, really critical. And then articulating what that means for you. I'll give you an example. About 3, 4 years into my career, I thought I knew my strengths and weaknesses. So naive and lovely of me. But one of my bosses told me something that was a pivotal moment. She says, I don't know if you know this, but do you know what you're actually good at? Making complex things sound simple. And at first, I didn't understand what she means, and we talked about it. And then I realized, oh my God, she's right. Whether it's financials, whether it's change management, digital transformation, a campaign, I'm pretty good at taking something really complicated and telling the story, clarity of communication, the action plan to make it sound simple. And I have taken this skill in every single career change that I've made, and I've articulated it, marketed it, used it, like demonstrated. And so back to my technical person, once they learn in this 360 feedback what else they're good at and that they're bigger than just that, then they can articulate it and use it. So I think this is really critical, being able to know and articulate all of your experiences to date and how you can use them further in the non-linear sense.
Very interesting. I come from a more science STEM background. I have an undergrad in math and physics. I hadn't had any experience in marketing or management until about 8 or 9 years after my undergrad finished. But I was working for a market research company, Nielsen. You may have heard of them. You work
Yes.
for P&G, worked for Nielsen. I worked for a an electronic media company. I've done proudly say I've done well there. I love the job. I still have great memories of that job. And I came to Toronto in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into an e-commerce job in 2009. I have, I had fair bit of computer knowledge. I had fair bit
Mm-hmm.
of technical experience, digital experience, but I was not a developer. I was not a marketer. I was given to manage an e-commerce website.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, let's do it. At the time I was desperate. I always had the hunger of learning and growing. So I was like, okay, let me do it. Let
Mm-hmm.
me try to do that. And 15 years after, I run an e-commerce agency. That is how things change from being a physics math major, being in market research and brand, and then media. I also, at the time, did some teaching of
Mm-hmm.
physics, and from there to become an e-commerce specialist, it was completely
Mm-hmm.
different. But being versatile is
Hi,
hello.
sorry.
It's all right.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Mama работает, окей? Ты окей? Муа. Пока. Закрой зеркало, окей? Ты окей. Ты окей, солнце. Sorry about that.
No problem. We booked for an
Yeah.
hour, but it's okay. So h- h- I was one thing I also learned was being versatile.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is critically important as well. Um, um, the other thing you talked about communication, being able to articulate, that is critical to any job or in your life, even in your personal relationships. Uh, I strive to be. I'm still learning. Everybody's learning. I told my kids 3 or 4 things that you need to learn. Number one is, you need to be confident. Number one is being confident. If you're
Mhm.
not confident, everything else going out in a wash. So number one is being confident. Number two is being able to articulate.
Mhm.
Number three is being able to present, like presentation skills.
Yes.
Number four is selling. I think they go hand in hand, but they have distinct meanings into those few attributes I've told them. You gotta learn these things. Now, with that, I want to move on to communication. You mentioned that communication is not about the message, but about the delivery. How can professionals tailor their communication styles to resonate with diverse audience? For me, I have my team, I have my clients, I have public appearance, and my social appearance. How do you recommend keeping a synonymous tone
Mhm.
across while keeping your authenticity, or do you want to have separate or different approaches from one to the other while maintaining authenticity?
Interesting. I like that. First of all, just wanted to make a comment. I forgot that you were a physicist. Very cool. I like
I
that.
don't call myself a physicist. I went to school for physics. That's all I can say.
Very cool. Very, very, very cool. Now, back to communication. There is a role to play for content, so what, and delivery, how.
Right,
But I agree, sometimes we focus so much on the what that we forget the how.
right.
And so the how is really important. And the how, to your own comments, I think has to do a lot with that intention. And let's call it now, what is your plan to achieve your end result on the audience, right? Whether it's your social audience, your physical audience, whatever. And then confidence. And let's define confidence when it comes to communication. I think it's knowing and trusting that you can achieve your intention with your message, with your voice, with your body language, with your personal branding. And that comes with just practice. Okay. These are both skills that can be learned, that can be perfected. No one's perfect, but really they can be improved dramatically and progressed. And that's really important. Now, once you learn and define elements of your personal brand and your message, we talked about feedback, other ways are, people talk about the pie model, performance, image, and exposure, so all these things. Once you know that, how it comes to life, I think is an element of three things. The first thing is it has a huge tie to your networking and relationship building, which should also be intentional. Whether you do most of your communication in person or digitally, is it formal or informal? It has a lot to do with also how you build your network and relationships. And again, I don't know the exact statistic, but I think 70 or 80% of all opportunities are not published. So we find them through networking. Relationship building is critical, and you need to be intentional about it. So how do you get intentional about building relationships so that you can communicate in whatever way you deem necessary? I would say there's three key buckets of relationship building. The first key bucket is that core network of yours. These are the people that know you deeply. These are the people that you are intentional about building and improving relationships, you know, in the short term, in short term and long term. So you do it all the time. Like you talk to these people always, and they can open doors, they can be mentors, sponsors, and have a huge effect on your life, professional and personal. These are usually relationships that include more verbal communication, not social, and are more personal in nature. And you need to get clear on your priorities and just be authentic. The other two buckets are your strong networks and your weaker networks,
Mhm.
which are a mixture of in person and virtual. And this is where, and I think you mentioned your social communication is really important as well, whether it's LinkedIn or, presence in industry forums or whatever it is. And so I think it's being top of mind, it's being articulate, it's being authentic, right? Like you wouldn't share anything on LinkedIn that both you yourself as Waruna, but also you yourself as CEO of your company don't find authentically interesting and relevant to your audience. So really communication is intention and confidence. You have the plan and then you practice and it's
Right.
grounded in your network.
Perfect. With that, I want to move into our personal branding side of things.
Mhm.
Personal branding often overlaps with how we pitch ourselves. Exactly what you said.
Mhm.
What key elements? You tapped into that. What are the elements, key elements that contribute to impactful personal brand?
Yes.
Personal brand is something that I often have struggled. I have thought, okay, should I really put myself out there, especially as a business owner? I should put myself out there. I'm hesitant sometimes.
Mhm.
What are your advice, and how do we do this?
So not to repeat myself, but I think the first thing, of course, is knowing what your personal brand is. So just being very clear on what is it about yourself that you do want to articulate. So I
Right.
think, and I know we talked about that, but I think that's really important. So your strengths, your weaknesses, and you wouldn't articulate your weaknesses, but
Yeah.
knowing about them is important, and leveraging your strengths to compensate for your weaknesses is important. Knowing your intention, like why do you want to put yourself out there? What's the end result you want to achieve? That's important. I think the other thing is just being okay with being yourself and
Hmm.
being imperfect, because there is an element of vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? And so it's vulnerable. There's a reason when you said, "Tell me about yourself," I started with a personal.
Yeah.
I always do that. I tell my students to do that. Before you get into the work, start with a personal. Here's who I am. It helps people connect with you on a deeper than just work level. It also makes you more human. It
Yeah.
makes you, by focusing a tiny bit less on work at the beginning, it also makes you more approachable. So all these benefits, which also takes vulnerability. And then when you get into the work and you start pitching, or whatever the topic of conversation is, then you're already a human doing it versus a robot of
Hmm.
sorts. And it's based on a human connection. And then if you layer in everything that we talked about, the why, being able to deliver your message with practice, I think that helps. I think that helps being okay with putting yourself out there. And then the only other thing I would say, I think as many people are trying to figure out, how do I talk about myself in
Hmm.
this world where we do so many different things?
Hmm.
I could not summarize in one word what I do.
Hmm.
I know you can't either. I
Hmm.
think being able to articulate your professional story in a way that connects all the dots.
Right.
And sometimes this just takes a little bit of know, putting together the puzzle. Like, what
Right.
is it that connects all the dots of my life? I called it mofo in my intro.
Right.
I could
Right.
also call it storytelling. Whatever I do, talking
Right.
to the client, building a consumer campaign, or writing a lecture, it's all about storytelling. So there's multiple ways I now understand how to tie the dots together. But
Hmm.
often that's where people struggle. Like, oh, I do this, but also this and this. And
Hmm.
then it breaks apart. It doesn't paint the full picture.
Is it? Thank you for that. And does it relate to balancing your humility with confidence?
I think I think humility and confidence is more how it comes to life,
Right.
because humility is about being like, knowing that you're not perfect and just
Right.
and being human. So I think
Right.
that's how I interpreted the word for the sake of the discussion. And so
Yeah.
so I would say that's a part of it, talking to each other human to human and knowing that we're imperfect. And
Hmm.
but I think having the confidence to put yourself out there, right? Confidence is about knowing your worth and knowing that you've practiced. So
Hmm.
trusting yourself. Like I
Right.
can trust myself to talk to you right now I could say something wrong or mess up
Mm.
but I trust myself big picture that we're going to have a good discussion.
Yeah.
It will end up being out there on the internet. It will be cool. Someone may learn something new.
Yeah.
I trust myself in that, even if
Right.
it's not perfect.
Yeah. You practice, but knowing it is still not going to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a personal story that I um, noticed at my home. My little daughter, she's in public school, elementary school,
Hmm.
initial grades, and she was practicing a presentation, her first presentation for
Oh.
15 times. She would come to me and present it multiple times. Then I realized that I don't do that myself. I think practice is important, but knowing it may still not be perfect, but that's fine.
Hmm.
Practice, but knowing it's going to be perfect
Yes.
is what I thoroughly believe. You want to go through your script, and yeah, you may be the subject matter expert. You could be one of the most renowned orator. You may be an award-winning professor like yourself, but having that practice and knowing that practice at this, knowing that you practice at the same time, knowing that it could be still imperfect.
Yeah.
This goes well with business projects or technical development, product development projects as well. I was speaking to Chandra Kaiser from Voizera. He has about 40 years of experience in technology. He spoke to me on Sixcast a couple of weeks ago, I think last month. Uh, something he said was, "We don't chase perfection.
Yes.
We get the product out. How fast and cheap we can get the product out is what makes us break or not, or make it or break it." Um, I truly believe in that. I used to think everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. Your background has to be perfect. Your dress has to be perfect. Uh, this podcast has to be perfect. I was toying with the Riverside. It didn't work out well, so we moved into Zoom. So all of that, expect that not
Yes.
everything is going to be perfect. That is the most important thing.
Yeah. Like my son running in midway. I'm sorry.
It,
Yeah.
it was a lovely and cute surprise. I wanted to move into. Thank you for that. I want to move into multicultural backgrounds. You are heavily multicultural. You have a nice story to tell. As someone who has worked across different cultural contexts, how do you navigate the balance between playing the rules of the game and staying true to yourself? I often run into this issue. I have a Sri Lankan background. I have an ethnically, Sinhalese background, and how do I present myself as a Sri Lankan as well a Canadian while absorbing the normal cultural norms is a problem that I had over the years. I may still struggle sometimes. Who do I want to be? Do I disconnect from my old? No, I don't want to do that. Do I connect with the Canadian culture? Yes, I definitely want to do that as well. How do I find the balance?
I think this is part of the immigrant experience, right?
Yeah,
You have to balance both sides of the coin
yeah,
because you're now both. You're not just one or the other.
yeah,
So I think on the first side of the coin is yes, you need to study and adapt to the rules of the local game because immigration was a choice. I,
yeah,
I made a choice to move to England, Italy, Canada, Colombia. It was a choice. I had intention. I studied a lot and I adapted. Now, adapting doesn't mean completely throwing away who you were before that point in time. So you don't change who you are, but you evolve. So you're yourself and you've taken everything that life has given you to date with you, but you do adapt, and balance. And I think this is the part that is quite tricky. This is where we kind of feel out of sorts. And I'll give you a really cliche example, and I still struggle with this, okay? Giving feedback as an Eastern European is a very different experience than giving feedback as a Canadian, which has caused me so much like grief or heartache.
In Eastern European, if I may, right, if I understand right, it's very direct to the point.
Very direct. And it's not because you're being mean. Like
Yeah.
feedback is a gift. You're
Yes.
trying to make someone improve. It's with love.
Yeah.
But, if you're working in a presentation for me and slide two is a mess, my Eastern European side wants to tell you, Aruna, slide two is a mess. You have to fix it. In Canada, you can't say that because you're going to hurt people's feelings. You will think, oh my God, I messed up the whole presentation. And that's not the case. It's just that one slide that needs to be fixed. So in Canada, I call it the Canadian sandwich, where you have to, make sure to be intentional and state all the good things,
Mhm.
which again, all real things. And then in the middle, you do state the thing that you need improved. And then you end again with all the good things. Versus in Eastern Europe, that just sounds like a waste of time
Yeah.
because I give you good feedback and I give you constructive feedback, and they don't have to be together. And there's no good or bad way, they're just different.
Mhm.
And so I had to learn. I
Mhm.
now do something in the middle. Okay. So
Right.
I'm still not quite Canadian with my feedback, but
Mhm.
I'm not Eastern European either.
Mhm.
And the way I make up for it, so this has been my tip in case
Mhm.
it's helpful, is by making sure that my team knows where I'm coming from. So
Mhm.
if you ever work with me, be like, hi, I'm Maria. We'll
Mhm.
do our spiel. Let's get to know each other working styles. And I'll tell people, I'm a little direct. If if it's ever too direct, just tell me. I'll,
Mhm.
I'll also, be in touch enough. I've now been a manager for many years,
Mhm.
but just so you know, I'm a little direct. I'm pretty fixed on time. Okay, so I
Mhm.
very like if it's a 1 o'clock meeting, I will be there.
Mhm.
12:59.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes. I and all these other things about me that maybe will be helpful for you if you have to work
Mhm.
with me. I will then
Mhm.
ask you the same. Tell me about yourself. Like, how
Mhm.
do you work? And
Mhm.
I think communicating actually
Mhm.
helps us
Mhm.
find that common ground. And
Right.
that maybe if I do mess up, if I give you feedback that's too direct and it's not great,
Mhm.
then you'll know me. So you'll know it wasn't malicious.
Mhm.
But then hopefully you'll also tell me that, hey, let's do it differently next time. Because again, this area of humanity, like we've had this
Mhm.
conversation. So I think communication helps as well and just getting to know each other.
Mhm. I want to also talk about your TEDx talk. You're a TEDx speaker. You touched on the concept of multiple national identity disorder. I don't want to go too deep into that. Anyone who's watching this episode we will put a link into that in our caption to your TEDx speech as
Thank
well.
you.
But touch on that briefly. I'd love to add a little bit of a taste into our conversation.
Sure. Before I go into it, what's funny, funny, not funny, to our previous conversation about not being perfect, I make a mistake in my first opening sentence. So anyone who's going to watch it, I mess up. I cannot pronounce the word refrigerator,
Right.
and I mess up in the first sentence. Okay, and I practiced a lot. So if I can mess up, anyone should feel better about messing up. This was a very personal topic. Uh, I've been thinking about it honestly for a decade, probably more. And again, going back to the immigrant experience where you constantly feel like you're not enough and like you don't belong. Okay, so
Mhm.
I, I left Russia when I was 5. So
Mhm.
really, am I Russian? I I feel like I am, but I've never lived as an adult in Russia. In England, I was a kid. My childhood is linked to England, but I've never worked in the UK. I did my MBA there, so I have some ties. But again, I didn't raise a family there. In Italy, I didn't even live in a big city. I've lived in small cities, so I felt like Is that the full experience? I'm Colombian by marriage. So again, and I'm Canadian, but not really. And it's this idea of who am I? Am I enough? Do I belong? And it's something I feel that's very true for any immigrant, but even if you take it a step further for any human. Earlier in the talk, you mentioned what if you're moving from a small town in Northern Ontario to Toronto? It's going to feel like a different country. Right. And my husband and I talk about this all the time. When I immigrated, I came to the GTA. When he immigrated, he went to a small town in Nova Scotia. And that was a different country. Yes. And so I feel we all feel out of sorts, like we don't belong. But really, if everyone just connects, communicates, is a little open-minded, welcoming, I think we all will have such a more wonderful experience for everyone. We'll learn from each other and everyone will feel like they belong. So that was really the very cheesy context
Right.
of the talk. And I hopefully gave some concrete tips, not to give things away. Maybe had a few laughs along the way, but it was just my personal experience and what I think we should do with it, maybe.
No, thank you for that. Toronto is a multicultural city. Canada is a multicultural country. There have been some debates lately about that. Don't want to go into a political, social context there. However, um, there are many ethnicities. I think probably 150 ethnicities in,
Yeah, if not more.
if not
Yes.
more, in Canada. So this is very relatable to many of the people. It's okay for you to be who you are,
Hmm.
where you are originally from, but it is critical also critically important to be
Hmm.
adapted to the current environment. Being Canadian, knowing the cultural values and nuances, uh, being respecting the law and order and the social norms. I believe it's truly important, really critical to lead a happy and successful life while supporting a progressive society.
Hmm. Yes, you got it.
We talk about the knowledge acquisition. AI
Hmm.
has changed the game for everything. Over the past couple of years, primarily,
Hmm.
job market continues to evolve rapidly. How do you recommend professionals stay agile and continuously build the right knowledge and skill set to remain competitive?
I think being proactive is probably the biggest tip I would give. I think when it comes to knowledge acquisition or it comes to just evolution, we now know we're going to have to continuously learn new things, new tools, new skills, and be open to what they will bring us because AI is a tool. A calculator is a tool, a laptop is a tool, AI is a tool. Like any tool, we should learn how to use it. We will all use it differently. Maybe some things will be common, but it can also be different. And then this tool can help us progress to a new opportunity, or maybe making a current opportunity better or more efficient. So I think being proactive in learning, whether it's formal learning, but more often humans learn by doing, right? So just trying things
Mhm,
out.
mhm,
And so it's knowledge acquisition and almost capability acquisition, like things that you can do. So
mhm,
I think that's important, but also this concept that we talked about earlier, being open-minded. So it's
mhm,
funny, I have a funny story with AI. I was a user of AI, but I'm not a technical person. Okay, so I'm not a tech IT software developer, none of that.
mhm,
Okay, but I was a user of AI. And I was also a public speaker, like I told you. So the way I got into AI was I was asked to moderate a panel of technical experts on AI.
mhm,
And I didn't think twice. I was like, cool, I can do that. I can break the ice and make people talk. As I went through the planning and the execution of this project, I realized something. I can add to the discussion. Again, with my very non-technical, but how do you make complex things sound simple?
Yes.
Yes, expertise. And as I realized I could add to this and add benefit to the audience, it spiraled.
Yeah.
And, fast forward later, I now design organizational development workshops
Mhm.
using AI, and I'm not a technical person.
Right.
So this was crazy to me. Like the first time it happened, I was like, why me? But again, due to my skill set, strengths and weaknesses, me saying yes to almost any cool opportunity, being open-minded,
Right.
proactive, all the things we talked about. And now this is like a solid part of what I do as, organizational development and leadership development and all of that. And so I think just what I said, being proactive, learning, being a user is so important, being
Mhm.
open-minded,
Mhm.
putting your hand up,
Yeah.
all of the above.
Right. I have a similar story as well. I'm not a developer, even though I run a technology company, or rather technological services company. We do digital transformation projects for our clients, and our architects, they give very complex software architecture diagram and user flows, unless you have a master's or a PhD in or lots of experience in software development, technological architecture. It's very hard to understand. Maybe that's the way I saw it, from a non-technical and a business standpoint. And I had to bring some of them into the conversations or the time, talk to our clients. Then I thought, okay, there could be a better way. I
Mhm.
throw that into ChatGPT. Tell me, how do I explain this? I'm a business person. My client is so and so. So you provided the context. I provided context about myself. I provided a little bit more background about the project. This is what the client is trying to achieve. So please explain this software architecture diagram, SADs we call them. Tell me. And it would give me a full summary, synopsis of how I should say it. And I can say, okay, my client is very technical. Push it up a notch. It
Mhm.
would do that. My client is not technical at all. Bring it down to simplifying, going back to your ability to articulate things that are really complex. I have that challenge. So what I've used ChatGPT, and the knowledge adoption has significantly increased over the past couple of years since I started using a GPT. And I've noticed that some of the developers, some of the technical individuals, they are a little bit against using that. They think they are in denial sometimes. That is, I would recommend them to change their mindset, as you said, being open-minded. And I was trying ChatGPT, and one of my clients, and I would also consider him to be one of my mentors as well. He said, "Rana, you got to try this. You're gonna love this." So he's going so far with it. I can't be the one left behind, and we are providing services. So I got to adopt it fast, and then it changed my life. I adopted it to my team as well. They are using it, so we are very AI based team now,
Mhm.
and it has augmented the way we operate. It really elevated our output as well.
Mhm.
So going into the last question of our conversation, again related to AI, you talked about career and personal growth. How can I use AI in your career strategy? How can I make it particularly useful for our personal branding? If I be a little bit more intentional about that point, how can I use AI for my personal branding? Will I become just another content creator on LinkedIn and people will unfollow me? What are the things that you have to say about that?
I mean, I would break it down. I think AI, which whether it's chat or any of the other tools, I think it's a really cool brainstorming and research tool. So I think when it comes to career strategy, personal branding, or any topic at hand,
Right.
you want to do the adequate research, you want to brainstorm, ideate. It's a cool tool for that. It's fun, especially if you really practice again and learn how to do it well, because
Mhm.
you may not get a lot out of it if you don't know how to use it well.
Mhm.
So again, with intention, I think it's a really cool tool. Now, when it comes to output, my personal opinion, I don't know if it's the right one.
Mhm.
Whatever output you put needs to be your own words. So I'm in the camp of very cool for research, ideation, rough notes, outlines, whatever. Maybe some editing help, proofreading, translation, you name it. But if I'm going to write a post on LinkedIn, if I'm going to write an article, if I'm going to write a book, a speech, I want it to be me.
Authentic.
Imperfect, authentic me. Yes.
Right.
And I think there is magic in that, where again, the research, the brainstorming, there will be augmentation, optimization,
Mhm.
but the words sound like me. If you hear my speech and then you meet me on the street at a coffee shop, I'm going to sound like me. Because where I think where the disconnect happens is I hear your perfect speech,
Yeah.
then I meet you. Like, that wasn't you.
Right.
Yes. And I think that's the disconnect because even if you give good prompts, yes, I feel your end words should be your own, optimized, but your own.
So you say, lack of better words, uh, you don't want to work on uh, you don't want to use AI just for the facade. You want to use it to improve yourself and put the improved version of yourself outside as opposed to building a facade through AI.
Yes. Yes. Again,
Because
just a
you
tool. It's just
too.
it's not magic, it's just a tool. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Lots of insightful and thoughtful discussion here, and lots of inspiring stories. Before I wrap up, I want to quickly wrap up some of the key takeaways from today's conversations. We talked about the importance of having flexible and intentional career strategy. We talked about how transferable skills can open doors into different industries, different career directions, trajectories, the power of effective communication and building of a personal brand is an important one, and how to adapt and how to adapt cultural differences, cultural norms. How do we balance between whilst between different cultural norms while staying true to yourself?
Mhm.
And we also talked about continuous learning, essentially is importance of the continuous learning to stay competitive and be relevant in the socio-economic conditions, evolving socio-economic conditions, and how AI can be a valuable tool, again, a tool to navigate career and improve your personal brand. Again, a big thank you to Maria for sharing such wonderful and inspiring thoughts. What's next for you? Where can people find you? Two questions, by the way.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. What's next? Who knows? I always have, I tell my students and they laugh, I'm the queen of side gigs. So who knows?
Right.
Yes, what the next big thing will be. But you can usually find me downtown Toronto or on campus at U of T quite a lot. I
Mhm.
usually am out and about. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So I would love to, yes, keep talking. I think career strategy, personal branding, all of the topics that we discussed are so important for your career, but also for your personal life. And yeah, I thank you for having me. Honestly, this was lovely.
Thank you again. If something from today's conversations resonates with you in to our listeners, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this episode with anyone you may find might benefit from it. And please stay connected with us. And again, Maria, thank you. I'm grateful to you for your time and energy and taking the time on this Saturday. And I hope we can connect again soon. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and keep building.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Sixcast. We'd love to connect with you, so feel free to comment or reshare. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Six Senses. Bye for now.